and the process in place to get these goals lined up. So I really, really, really hope you guys are excited about jumping into tonight. Just as we get started here and people are watching, definitely let me know as you're coming onto the page if you've already done your goal setting. I know for many of you, let me double check. Some people said they had some problem with sound. Let me just double check. Can you guys, before I get started or go to the first slide, if you can just post on the page if you're having trouble with sound or you're not able to hear, let me know. If you are able to hear me, actually I probably should say the reverse. If you are able to hear me, just let me know. Oh, perfect. Sounds like we are good. All right. All right, looks like people are getting in and everyone's getting access. All right, good. Now let's slide back into the presentation. Okay, so when you're thinking about getting started, when you're thinking about kind of making that transition to building goals, planning your business out, I really want to make sure that we do maybe a quick refresher. Just curious, how many of you guys were on the webinar from last month? I'm just curious how many people have already maybe written down their goals because they were on the webinar last month. How many people have maybe weren't on the webinar but have already started writing down your goals? If you could just let me know in the comments, it'll give me a good idea of where everyone is. Because what I thought I would do as we start today is making sure that we have a quick refresher on setting your goals, because we can't turn your goals into action if you haven't actually created those goals. And where this becomes important, like we've talked about last month, is when you're setting goals, you really want to set goals in kind of what I call these kind of pillars, or in these kind of groupings where you're going to have maybe a growth goal for your business, a goal around profit, and a goal for customers, and a goal around community. And what do I mean by that? When I talk about a goal specifically for growth, I'm talking about goals that are going to help you with expansion, maybe going after new markets, new customers. This is a concept of maybe having you, if you're in retail, maybe you're looking at more than one location. Maybe you're looking at doing something where you've done retail and now you want to do more online. So that's kind of a growth mode. Maybe you do something from let's say you do vegan skincare products, and maybe you've done a lot of facial products, toners and things like that, and maybe you want to kind of migrate over into body creams, or you want to migrate over into hair creams and so forth. So thinking about how maybe looking at new markets, maybe even some cases product, and how that is actually going to drive things from a growth standpoint. The other pillar I like is profit. Now, the reason I break up profit and growth is because there's a difference between having an actual revenue goal versus moving the levers to help us grow. Going into a new market or reaching a new customer base, often I find has very different projects. A lot of times you need new tools in place. You may have to add a component to your website. You may have to update your POS system or your email marketing. Or from a profit standpoint, if we're looking for additional kind of revenue opportunities, it may be taking something that already exists and tweaking it. It may be something where you're either reducing maybe your overall expenses related to that product or service, or tweaking the revenue so that you can turn maybe a product that you've done as a one-time product over into, let's say, a ongoing or repeat product, a product that people can sign up for every single month, whether that's a subscription box, because maybe you do kind of retail product. Maybe that's from a consulting standpoint. Maybe it's a 12-month consulting program or 6-month consulting program. But it's that concept of how do you increase the revenue with something you're currently doing. From a customer standpoint, what we really want to do is look at how do you get deeper into the customer base? How do you expand that experience? How do you get those repeat customer buys? So someone who's bought from you before. And then from a community standpoint, I often like to do things as far as a give back strategy. What can I do to pull people back into the fold? Now, for some of you, when I say it's time to set goals, I use these pillars as a general guideline. So like I said, I just wanted to do this as a refresher. If you need help on how to set goals, I highly, highly recommend you go back to our webinar from January, because I go through not only these kind of pillars or these kind of foundational idea of setting up goals in these 4 different buckets, but I walk through the process of how do you set it up, how do you come up with your list, how do you brainstorm, how do you prioritize, and so forth. Tonight, I don't want to spend the time there since we've already done the webinar, but what I do want to make sure is that you guys are grounded in the fact that to turn your goals into action, we have to make sure you have those goals. We have to make sure that we have some strong goals in diverse groups and buckets like these so that we have something to really dive into. So when you think about setting goals for your business, make sure you don't kind of jump into that short-sighted approach of, I just want to make more money. I just need to, to make more money. That's something that comes up all the time. Like, Stephanie, I got one goal, I need more money. And I get that. But what happens is when you only chase the money, when you just say, I need more money, you can end up in a cycle where you just kind of chase your own tail because every project looks like an opportunity. Every idea that people put on the table sounds like an opportunity. Anything that sniffs or looks like or sounds like it could be money, you will chase it down. And what I want you to do is use your goal setting process as a way to slow down that process and truly identify what are the projects that have high impact in your business versus the projects that are nice to have, maybe cool ideas, maybe the things you do after you get the infrastructure in place. And by setting up the time, by doing that goal setting, by spending the time to kind of go through the process of digging down and creating goals in these 4 different buckets, I find you'll be better positioned to try to turn your goals into action. So I just wanted to take a few minutes at the beginning of this webinar to talk about goal setting, only because if you don't have that piece together, we can't jump to the action point. Does that make sense? How many of you guys feel like you already have your goals? You've used these buckets, maybe since the last webinar, you've written them down, you've started to document everything. Just write it for me quickly in the comments section. That'll give me a good kind of assessment of how many people are with me, or if you guys need a little more time next month to actually, a little more time to get those goals out there, okay? Now, as you're setting up your goals, one thing that we talked about last time is if you're a newbie, if you're just starting out, you're going to start with a shorter list of goals. If you get more experience, you've been in business for a while, you're probably going to have maybe like 4 to 6 goals. But if you're new, start with a smaller group of goals. And the reason I say that is you want to start with something manageable. It's better for you to have 3 or 4 goals and you complete those goals early. Let's say you complete them by August or September. We can always go back to your brainstorming list and add more. What I don't want you to do is kind of overwhelm yourself with a whole bunch of goals and a whole bunch of things to work on, and you kind of get lost in the sauce. That's really kind of the first stage of setting up success for your goal setting, is to make sure you start with a small, manageable size of goals, list of goals. So first step is make sure we got some goals. Make sure we have some goals in these 4 pillars. This ensures you have a diverse look at goals. And also making sure that you're not just chasing that money. We're thinking about how do we expand our business and grow our business, not just the net of it all of do I make money or not, but we want to kind of dig into the ways to make that happen. And often by using these 4 different buckets and these 4 different pillars, you'll get there. Does that make sense to everybody? Kind of, I mean, I know I can't see heads nod, but if you can type yes in the comment section, that'll give me an idea if everyone's following along. Okay. All right, so some people are new. This is big. Okay, so if you're new to this, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, step 1, I would say watch our webinar number 1 in January, and you can jump and grab those links online. I'll also send the links to everyone who's registered, so you'll have access to it. If you're getting started with goals, start with a slide like this where it shows you you're going to come up with 3 to 4 goals. As a general rule, I come up with 1 goal in each one of these buckets and find a goal specifically for growth, a goal for profit, a goal that helps you drive your customers. And my big bucket is community. I like to have a community goal. For some people, it's different. Maybe they'll have a goal that will be a personal goal. So maybe it's around like training and development. It could be around training and development for you. It could be training and development for your team. So that's another maybe fourth bucket that could replace that community section. So the first step is coming up with these 4 buckets, doing some brainstorming, coming up with your actual goals. And then once you have those goals, we're going to turn them into action. Now, don't worry if you don't have your goals ready. I don't want you to think that you can't get enough out of this webinar. I'm actually going to walk you through kind of step by step of how do you take some general idea or general goals, and we're going to turn those into action. And if you need to go back and do a refresher for webinar 1, you'll be able to do that. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to say, how do we get started? How do we go from, yes, Stephanie, I got 3 or 4 goals in my mind, in my head, around. How do I get started? What do I do? And the first thing is documentation. I know that probably sounds like a no-brainer. It's like, of course, okay, yeah, I have an idea. But what I find for most people is they keep and store a lot of this in their head. And when you store it in your head, it makes it very difficult to drive accountability, either for you, if you're a solopreneur and you run your own business, or if you're a small business and it's like 2 or 3 or 10 people. It's hard to communicate when all of the ideas and information is locked down in your head. So what I want you to do as kind of a next step to this webinar tonight is once you write down those first phrases or first goals, what I want you to do is start to create or use this template that I call the action planning template. Now, this template, I know the font's a little bit small on your screen, so don't worry because we're going to take each one of these columns and break them down one by one. But I did want to show it to you quickly on a full vision of what kind of an action planning template looks like. And the reason why is I find the biggest way to turn your goals into action is not only to be able to have it documented, but have it documented in a 1-page document. Because it's something that you can print out and you can hang up on your wall, you can tape to your desk, you could blow it up if you want, and that way it's an easy, big reminder for you or your team. What are your goals and your plans for the year? And what are the key action items, timeline, and everything that we've signed up for the year? Okay? So there's a reason for my madness why I'm showing you this in this format, but let's dive in now, okay? So if you're using the action planning template, the first item is the goals, all right? Now we talked a little bit about goals in different buckets, but what I want to do is drill down and talk about what makes it really a good goal. A good goal are things like this, things that have numbers in them. They have to have an actual metric. And the reason your goal has to have a metric is it has to be measurable. So when you're working on kind of putting together this action planning template, what I want you to do as your next step is literally type out these goals. Now I have here 1, 2, 3, 4 goals. This is a concept to get started. You can borrow one of these, use one of these. You can use them verbatim. I don't care. That's what these webinars are for. But the concept is you want to get down on your goal. What is your goal supposed to help you accomplish? Are you trying to increase more consults? And the reason I say something like increase 20% client consults per month is because what you're trying to maybe build in your business is a steady flow of consults. And that's why I say stay away from the idea that I just want to make money, because I just want to make money. It doesn't have a clear path to it. Where this, when you start to say I want to have a 20% increase in client consults per month, we can say, number one, how many consults on average do we have? How many consults on average did we have last month? And we can actually say what 20% means. It means 5 more clients, it means 3 more clients, it means 25 more clients, depending on your business. Because we put this at a monthly rate, this allows us to measure it throughout the year. What we don't want to do in our businesses is we don't want to set up goals that we have to wait to the end of the year to know if we've accomplished anything. Your goals should be things that are livable, breathable, and allow you throughout the year to know, are you on track? Now, the goal is to get to 20%. So keep in mind, when you set this goal in January or February, it may take you 2 or 3 months to get there. But the concept here is, what do we want to achieve? What is that actual goal? If you're not maybe a service-based business, maybe you're a retail business. And one thing I've talked about with a lot of people who have retail businesses is they're working on building their online presence. So one recommendation I have often for their goals is think about how you can increase your daily sales on your website. And I say here daily sales by 20. So as you can see, I got a metric in there. And the reason being is, once again, I can count it. I can actually track that. And the reason I put it on daily, for some of you guys, it may be weekly, it may be monthly, so you have to figure out what works for your business, is I want something that I can track over time. I want something that I can trend and actually see, am I moving in that right direction? So that's why I want a metric at these daily, maybe even weekly levels instead of annual level, because this is something I can monitor over time. And from a small business standpoint, you can make changes, tweaks, and adjustment to those goals, okay? Maybe you do a lot of training and you're looking at doing some online training, or maybe you do offline training, maybe you do cooking classes or something like that. One thing that I recommend for a lot of people is they do a lot more online training programs, online coaching programs. If that's something you're interested in, do the same thing here. How many programs do you want to have in place by year end? And we'll also talk about kind of timeline in a few minutes. I'm big, like I said, on the whole community side. So I often have goals for me around either doing some type of donation of time, money, energy, and so forth. So here's an example of a community donation. So what do you guys think? These goals sound doable. These goals sound like things that you've thought about before. Have you drilled down your goals to these levels? I'm just looking right now. Perfect. It looks like everybody's starting to join in. Oop, we got a couple more people in here. It looks like we got about, we might be up to about 150 people today. So I'm hoping that's actually pretty good. Not everyone's commenting here, so I can see you guys that you're viewing it, but I don't see you commenting. So let me know. I mean, I love to make this interactive. I always got plenty of slides and I can run through everything, but let me know. When you've set your goals in the past, have you set them like this? If you've already set your goals, have you drilled down to this level? If you're looking at this, has this given you some ideas in your goals? I'd love to hear your feedback and your thoughts. So, all right, let's keep filling out this action plan. So goals is one column. For each one of those goals, what I like to do is talk about what is the achievement. Why am I actually doing this goal? And the reason why you want to get a little bit of flavor on why is if you have success with that goal, you may come back and come up with another goal in the same bucket, because you may find that, yep, I really do want to get my reoccurring revenue going. Yep, I really need to kind of work on my client base. Or yep, I want to do more in the community and so forth. So spend some time when you're working on your goals is understanding why you're doing what you're doing, because this is going to allow you to not only think more strategically about what you're doing, but also make sure that as you're setting these goals, as you're setting the action plan, as you're completing these goals, you always have that strategic perspective in mind. Now, for many of you that have done like long, big goal setting plans and have put together marketing plans, I've done all those. I've created 10-page, 20-page, 30-page documents. I love those things. But what I find is they're very hard to live by on a daily, weekly, and manage your business to it. So instead, I tend to like to bubble things up into kind of these charts and tables, because what it happens is I can quickly say, why am I doing what am I doing? What do I actually have planned? When do I want to get it done? What are some of the ways I'm going to track it from a milestone? And what are some of the actions I have to get done? Okay? And that's why templates like this become really important and I find very impactful, because now I can take an actual goal and I can expand it. I can give it a little more dimension. And when you give it more dimension, it's much easier for you to act on that. So what that means is taking something like, I want to get a 20% increase in clients per month. I'm doing it because I really need to drive more clients. I want to be able to either start it March 31st. And the start time is really, really key. For a lot of people, they come up with their action plan and everything starts the same day they start their action plan. And it's a huge, huge, huge pitfall, because trying to run 4 or 5 goals, 4 or 5 projects, 10 activities, and all the tasks that fall out from this at the same time is going to burn you out. Also, you're not going to give yourself the time it takes to actually get it done. You're probably going to be looking at a lot of like short tasks and short projects and quick wins. Let me get a quick email out, or let me just set up a quick landing page and things like that. What I want you to do is move away from that kind of like knee-jerk reaction to goal setting and action and setting actions around your plans. I want you to sit down and say, what is that goal? What is my timeline for it? And specifically kind of stagger these things out so they can get done. All right. The next thing I want you to do for every single goal is I want you to have a milestone. And what I mean by that is, how do you know if your goal is working? What is an early indicator? Because for many of us, while we are looking for that bottom line revenue, often there are early indicators that help you know, yep, I'm on the right track. And what that may mean is, especially for consults as an example, the question is, how many people inquire? How many people sign up or put in a form asking about more information about your consults? If those numbers start to increase, then it's more likely that your number around the actual booked and paid consults will increase. Those are all levers. Because if you have 10 people that are putting in inquiries, most likely you're probably getting 5%, 10% conversion. So you're only talking 1 or 2 people. So if you want to get more people to do consults, often you're going to need to increase that 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 so that ultimately more people will sign up for consults. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well to you guys? Kind of how you have to kind of fill the bucket up with inquiries, prospects, people who are interested in your consults before you're going to be able to get a ton of people to actually sign up for that consult. And that's why when you're doing goal setting and when you're trying to turn things into action, often it means you have to set a goal, set a timeline on when you're going to start it or when you're going to complete it by, and then you're going to need those early milestones. The next step from there is, after you get those milestones in place, is we want to talk about what are some of the action steps. This is where we're saying, well, how am I going to get it done? So for every goal I have, how or kind of what are those key steps I have to take to get that goal done? And when you can create a document like this, and like I said, whether you're in retail, whether you're in manufacturing, whether you're doing services, maybe you're an author, maybe you do cooking classes, this applies across the board. You want to be able to sit down and say, what are each one of my action steps for every single goal that I'm completing? All right. So what do you guys think? Does this template seem maybe not too intimidating? Does it seem like something that you can do? You can just tell me yes. Or if you guys have a question, let me maybe take a quick break and make sure we don't have any questions so far from the group. All right. Perfect. All right, looks like somebody said we're explaining it well. Looks like we do have one little question here. Someone was asking, would we have different categories at the top of the page, especially if you don't have a business yet or if you're just starting out? That's a really good question. A lot of people I know come on the webinars and you're kind of planning out your business and trying to figure out what you would do. I would say that your buckets at the top of the page, the achievement, the goal, the timeline, the milestone, the action steps would be the same. No matter if you're a new business, if you haven't, if you've been in business for years and so forth, because the idea is you want to kind of follow the same methodology. And the idea is, if you use this methodology as you build your business or before you launch your business, what's nice about it is by using the same kind of colors I have here at the top, the achievement, goal, timeline, milestone, and action steps, you can repeat that and as you roll it out into your business. So you can use the same process over and over. What will be different for everyone is these rows across. The actual content in here will be different. And for many of you, you'll have to decide what's your starting point. If you already have your goals, I tell people to start with column 2 here. Put in your goals, then move to your achievements, then do your timeline, set in some milestones, and then start with some action steps. If you haven't done your goals and you're kind of struggling where to start with your achievements. Then look at the webinar from January, because that'll teach you on how to move kind of from achievements, concepts, ideas down into goals, and then come back and create this kind of template. Okay? So at the end of the day, what you want to have is you want to have a document like this. You want to have a document that has for your 2016 plan, what are all my goals? What are all my milestones? What are all my action steps? And like I said, I created this so you kind of had a visual behind what I'm explaining here, as well as you had a takeaway for something that you can do after this call, next week, next weekend. Now, for many of you, we always comes up as a question on time. How do I get all this done, Stephanie? I'm busy, busy, busy. I just get overwhelmed with what I already have to do. This is another one of those types of things where this is a weekend project. So what I highly recommend is chart out an hour or two, let's say maybe about 2 hours, I would say, so you can complete this. If you've already done your goal setting, this step of the process should only take you about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. If you haven't done your goal setting, you may have to tack that on. Your goal setting can take anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then add this kind of planning and action template to your timeline. What I recommend for many people is reason I say set it on the weekends is weekends we tend to be a little bit freer, things tend to be not as much going on, client maybe demand is a little bit less. So whatever that day is for you, look for that day. And I really want you guys to set up a template like this. Once you create a template like this, like I said, print it out, put it on your door to your office, put it on your desk, put it on your wall. This should be the thing that you kind of help you manage your days, your weeks, and your months too. And I'll explain a little bit more on this webinar how you kind of make this come alive a little bit more. But this is kind of the big step one in turning kind of your goals into actions. All right? If you have any other questions, I love questions during the presentation. So feel free to just keep posting on the page and I will jump over there and grab them. Okay? All right, so we finished step one. We got our action plan together. We got our template. We know what our goals are. We have our milestones and everything. Now what you have to do is start to continue to drill down. Because once you get those kind of action steps together, for many of us, you're still going to have to turn this into a project plan. You're still going to have to turn this into, what do I get done on Monday? What do I get done on February 28th? What do I get done on these days? So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take it for each goal that you have, you should have 5 action steps. And what do I mean by action steps? They're these items that were in that column that's orange. These are the actual actions that you're going to take for each goal, okay? So each goal should have 5 action steps. Each action step is going to equal a project. Each project is going to have 10 tasks, okay? Now, that may sound like mumble jumble to you guys, so let me maybe break it down a little bit different way. What I mean is we're going to take a goal, like we've been talking about, the 20% increase in client consults per year. We're going to list out the action steps. Now, in the document that I had before the template, I think I had about 2 in each column. But at the end of the day, I want you to have 5 action steps. Now, every project does not have to have 5 action steps. I'm using this as a general rule because what I find for people when it comes from going from goals to action is they struggle because we either go too detailed or we don't go deep enough. So my recommended kind of, I would say, approach would be to have per goal 5 action steps and 10 tasks. And what I mean by an action step is this is going to feel like the big project. Like, what is the big thing that we need to do to move the needle? And for many of us, maybe you're going to need to build a prospect list. You're going to need to build a list of who would potentially be those consulting customers so we can market to them. Maybe another action step would be automated booking system. You want to have some easy way that people can book for themselves their own consulting meetings. They can book a time, they can pay online or something like that. Another thing maybe is you need to create a follow-up process. Maybe you do a lot of consults right now, but you don't have a way that if you did a consult with someone last month, that an automatic reminder goes on your calendar to either follow up with them 45 days after a consult or 60 days after a consult and check in, see if they need another consult, if they need a follow-up session and things like that. Another action step or project Could be maybe you need to add these new features or the ability for people to either find out about your consults or sign up for your consults, or maybe you do a free 15-minute consult first and then you go into the paid consult. The key is you got to get those forms and all that material on your website so people can do it. Or maybe it's around developing the product. You need to maybe diversify your consulting packages so that you have packages that are extended packages. Maybe they're 6-week program, 5-week programs, maybe they're 6-week programs, maybe they're bundles of hours, 2 hours, 5 hours, brainstorming sessions, and so forth. So I'm just trying to give you guys ideas. You don't have to do it like this, but what I want to do is I want to give you an idea of how you get it done, and this is how you do it. And then for each action step, what I did is I used one for automatic booking, is you create those tasks. So literally, this is when you're getting into the weeds. You're saying, okay, for me to do an automated booking system, I'm going to need some software. I'm going to need an online payment process. I'm going to need a way to automate emails with that system. I'm going to have to link it to my calendar. Maybe I'm going to have to train my team if they get emails and so forth. And this is how you start to build your project plan. So like I said, it's kind of one goal, 5 actions, 1 action step for each project, and then for each project, 10 tasks. And if you do that as a general rule, you're going to have a strong plan. You're going to have a detailed enough project plan that you can act on it. And in your business, especially if you're not just a solopreneur, you can take these tasks or projects and assign them to people in your business. So now, instead of a person just having a general idea like, I just want to grow the business or I want to get more clients, now you have something that you can pass on to someone in your team and say, okay, I need to get this automated booking system in place in the next 60 days, because if we get that in place, that's going to be one of the key levers to help me increase my consults. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, managing all of this, because if I talked about 5 and 10, you can start to maybe multiply and see that these numbers are getting big. For some of you, you're maybe going to use like an Excel document because you just like Excel and so forth. But for many of you, I'm going to recommend using some type of project management tool. Your project management tool is going to be key to help you get a good handle on tasks, a good handle on where the project is, what progress is happening, and so forth. Like I said, you can use Excel to do that, especially when I use the templated grid. There's a quick question about that. This, I tend to start in Excel just for brainstorming purposes, but once I go into that detailed project plan, I'm going into a project management tool. Now, I use 2 different tools. There's a ton out there. Some are paid. What I like to do is recommend some of the free ones or the inexpensive ones out there. And Trello is a great one if you like to track progress. It works on this system called cards, where you can move things from board to board as you complete them. So if you want to do progress tracking, I would try a tool like Trello. You just go to Trello.com. I think that's their web address. They have a free option. You can actually test it out. If you like things that are more like task tracking, meaning here's my project plan and these are my 10 tasks underneath it, I highly recommend you look at a tool like Basecamp. I tend to use this for everyday, weekly management, especially in my team, because it allows me to take items like this where I have a goal, I have a project, and I actually have a task. I can truly translate that into an actual document. I can translate into something that I can track. And as you can see here, I know the image isn't that big, but there's an option here where you can actually put a to-do list together. And what I do is I put my project as my top level to-do list, and then I put my task underneath them. And as I complete the task, I just check them off one by one. If you have a team, same thing. You can assign that project or that task to someone in the team, and they can check it off one by one. So once again, this is just one step further on how you keep getting these goals and making them more actionable. Now, for some of you guys, this may be too much. You may have to back up, and the software, the technology may make your head spin, and that's completely fine. All that I want you to do is create a document like this. For some of you, this is still too much. Then what I want you to do is just create a document like this, because the goal of today's webinar is to give you the structure and the tools to get you closer and closer to driving action. But I don't want to overwhelm you. I don't want you to think you have to do it all. What I want to do is give you the full plan, and then you have to sit down and say, let me take it step by step. Let me do step one. Let me get the plan in place. Step two, when I'm ready for it, I'm going to start to do some project planning. And then step three, once you nail down and really kind of get in a good hold on your projects, I guess the final step I would say in translating those goals into action is scheduling it. Because for many of us as small business owners, we are busy. We don't feel like there's time in the day to even get done the things that we want to do today. And what I find for most people is the reason that happens is because your day is an open book, meaning your day is just a blank schedule where whatever emails come in, whatever phone calls in, it's really kind of what you're going to do today. So you're a little bit more in reactionary mode as opposed to in planned mode. Now, I'm not saying that you can take all that reaction out of life. I mean, things happen. I mean, even while I'm on this webinar right now, someone's calling me because you just never know what's going to be happening at any point in time. But what I want you to do is start to think about how you schedule your day differently, because by scheduling your day differently, by starting to think of a way to create a daily schedule so that each day you have time for the daily grind, but you also have time for this project work. What you'll find is you'll be able to get more done because your day is not kind of a free-for-all. You don't kind of just see what happens and ride the wave from there. And the way I think, or way I kind of feel that you get there, is by breaking up your either week or your day into time slots. And this is what I actually do. If anyone's ever worked with me before, you've probably seen this, or I might have shared it with you before. But what I found is some of the best ways to kind of get a hold on your day, and so you have time to get some of these projects done, is what I do is I create a schedule for myself, and I have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday schedule. First thing I do is I set work hours for myself. Now, lately I've been a little bit crazy work hours, so you might see an email from me at midnight. But as a general rule, I try to work from 7 to 7 each day. And what I do is I break up my day between when I'm waking up. In the morning, I do a lot of networking activities. Maybe I do some education. I read up on what's going on, articles, things like that. I make food in the mornings often for my day. I try to make food early in the day so I'm not starving throughout the day. Lately, I've been trying to work out a little bit, so that's a little bit fuzzy at times, but you guys get the point. But also what I do is I start to set time in my day so I can work on projects. So for me, some of my big projects are around newsletters, around boot camps that we're offering, around classes. And what I do is I set aside 2 hours each day so that the projects that I want to work on in our business, I actually have time to do it. Then I set aside 4 hours a day to work on my client work. Because I'm in a consulting, coaching type of business, I make sure that I have time each day to work on what my clients need them to do. And by creating that partition of work, by creating that time for me to work on projects in my business and have time to obviously service and provide for my clients, what it does is it ensures that I have time every day to work on my projects so I can get them done. I also set time for meetings. The reason I break up meetings is meetings I find are great, but they're not normally your most productive time of the day. And if I have meetings all throughout the day, what happens is I don't get a lot of continuity. I go from one meeting, then I work on some work for 20 minutes, and I get on another meeting, and then I jump off. And what happens is I'll forget what needs to get done, or maybe the follow-ups from those meetings, or I'll start a project and I'll only get halfway through it because I need to do a quick meeting. So what I tend to do, especially if you're in consulting or service-based business, is I try to schedule my meetings around similar time of day each day. So I do a block of meetings at once, and once I finish my block of meetings, then I can do my blocks of follow-ups at the same time. The other thing is I spend some time around planning. And here I put an example, maybe I'm doing some Facebook planning, some Twitter planning, some social media planning. Other things you might have in my schedule that I'll have is maybe I'll do some goal planning or webinar planning and so forth. And this is a great way to make sure that not only do I get the grind done, but I also get the planning, the strategy done at the same time. And then at the end of the day, I always wrap up my day with kind of a quick email review, just make sure I didn't miss any emails for the day, and trying to create a to-do list for myself the next day, so that when I go into my next project mode or my next 9 to 11 slot, I actually have a strong to-do list of what I already know I want to do, as opposed to the emails of the day distracting me or the text messages of the day distracting me. What do you guys think? How many people have you done something like this before? Do you think this would work for you? Do you think this looks super scary or super exciting? Let me know. I'd love to know in the comments. I know some of you are in Google Plus. Let me just check really quick and see if we have some questions there. Oh, sorry guys, I've been missing your questions there. I can see them now. We had a question that someone had about what if I'm in a business, like a retail business or so forth, where I'm not sitting at my desk or my computer? This can be a little bit challenging, but I do think if you're not working the register, meaning you're not the person that's ringing people up, or you're not helping people on the floor, then I do think there's an opportunity that you could break up your day like this. It just might look a little bit differently, because depending on when your retail hours are, you might have some hours before the store or restaurant or the retail establishment opens, that you'll do some planning. Maybe you do some planning at the end of the night, especially if you don't work in a place that has maybe mall hours. Some of you may be closing at 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock, especially when you have those types of days. You might want to do some of your planning post-close. That may be a good way to work it in. The other thing is you really should maybe break up days. You may not need to be at your establishment every single day, especially in retail, because often you'll have people who are kind of doing the day-to-day customer service. So you may not need to be in the office every single day, in the store every day. And what you may do is break this up instead of hours into days. You may have half-day planning sessions. So Tuesday mornings, maybe you stay in your remote office, or you stay in the back office in your store in the morning, and that's your planning session. Maybe on Thursdays, those are maybe your project work days. So you block out 2 or 3 hours that way. So it's another way to attack it depending on how you do your business. Yeah, I had another question came in about planning. What I also do is I do planning. When you set these plans, we set a lot of these plans in January, February, the beginning of the year, but life does change. May, June, things may shift. So what I also do is I literally schedule things on my calendar. So in addition to having this general outline, what I will do is I'll set up a goal setting review on my calendar for May, and normally I set it up for the weekend. So I'll pick something like May 21st. At 11 o'clock, I'll say I want to do a relook or refresh or retooling of my goal setting. As a general rule, I do it once a quarter. If you're new to this, you might want to do it maybe you do it twice a year. So you do the beginning of the year and mid-year. But the point of that is that'll help you retool and help you make sure that you don't lose touch of your goals. The other benefit of putting it on your calendar, and when I say put on a calendar, I mean if you have a Google Calendar, literally set an appointment with yourself. I find that is the best way to turn a lot of these actions into things to actually get done. If you have to write newsletters, instead of just saying I want to send out a newsletter on Tuesday and next Thursday, literally put those newsletters on your calendar. Put reminders on your calendar of when you want them to go out, and put reminders on there on when they need to be written by and loaded into your online marketing tool like Aweber or MailChimp or Constant Contact. And by starting to kind of put date, time, and reminders to it, what you'll find is you'll take it off of the page and off of paper, and then from a concept to something that's actionable, especially if you're a person that actively uses your calendar. We had another question about, Basecamp versus Trello. Someone asked about using a tool called Asana. Asana is a great tool as well. I love their software. The only reason I didn't have it here is Asana, if you have a large team, Asana can get a little bit expensive because you have to pay for each person if you want to be able to lock down projects. But I do think it's a wonderful tool as well. There are other project management tools out there, so please, please, please don't think you have to use these. the concept of the idea is I really want you to digitize your project management tool so it can be livable, so it can be assigned to people, so it can be completed. And if you have a large team, it's a great tool for meetings. So say you guys do weekly or monthly or quarterly team meetings. What you can do now is use your project management tool as your guide for those meetings. So you might go through and say, all right, we're going to do a 15-minute project update on our project goals for the year. And then each person pulls up Basecamp or Trello or whatever tool you're using, and you guys quickly go through it and say what progress what's the goal, how close are you to the milestone, what's our timeline on next completion, and any key tasks that are coming down the pipeline or any key tasks that you need another fellow team member to help you with. And this is a way how now we've kind of moved away from just ideas and really kind of drilled this down into something that is usable in your business, is a tool for team meetings, and is a great way for you to keep track on what's happening in your business. Okay. Now I had a couple more slides on here, just tips and ideas, but I do want to make sure we have enough time for questions. So if you do have any questions, feel free to post them here. You can post them on Google+. I'm looking at your questions on there as well, if you're not on our website page. All right, I see a question here. Someone asked about would I recommend Trello or Basecamp for them, depending on their business. They like things simple and clear. Really, the difference between Trello and Basecamp is visually how you learn. Are you a person that likes all the detail, meaning this is all the projects, all the steps, all the activity that's happening? If you're a detail person, I tend to recommend Trello. If you're a person that wants the key task and maybe wants something a little bit simpler and, like you said, kind of clear here, Phoenix, then I would probably say start with Basecamp. Now, Basecamp does cost $20 a month. I don't think they have a free program anymore. Double check that. I just haven't looked at their free program anymore. So I would say Basecamp would probably be a good starting point because it's much more task specific. And then under each task, you can write comments and messages and track everything under it. So simpler or clearer, I probably would go with Basecamp. If you do work by yourself and you don't have a large team, then I would look at Asana, because Asana is great for solopreneurs and it's a very clean, beautiful program. However, Asana, what I find is it does have a little bit steeper learning curve. So if you want to get the nitty gritty, get it up right away and don't mind spending $20 a month, then use Basecamp. If you want to start with something free and easy, then I'd say start with Asana. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions so far on translating these over to action? Okay. Oh, I see one more question here. And this actually is going to hit on some of the tips I have here. I get a lot of questions from people on, well, what do I do with all my other ideas? There's a question here that says, where I struggle with goal setting is, I come up with so many ideas, or people recommend all these great ideas, and I don't know where to start, and I don't know what to focus on first. So I completely understand what you mean by that question. That happens to all of us and the best of us. And I would recommend is two things. Number one, pick your goals, pick your top 3 or top 4. But what I also recommend is creating this thing that I call a parking lot. And I kind of call it an idea parking lot. Because what happens is we can get that anxiety sometimes that when we have all these other great ideas, we don't want to lose them. We don't want to let them go. And what happens is we tend to want to work on everything so we don't forget it. And if you put a simple process in place, and what I mean by this is I use Google Docs for a lot of things. If you're not familiar with Google Docs, then you can open a Word document as well. Google Docs is just an online kind of version of Word. And what I'll do is I'll create a sheet on Google where I will list out all of my great ideas for the year, or all of the great ideas I've ever come up with and I haven't fixed or haven't worked on or haven't done yet. And I call it my actual idea parking lot. And what happens is every time I come up with a new idea, I go to the same document and add it there so that I don't lose sight of it. I don't write it down on a piece of paper in front of me. I don't scribble it down anywhere else. I don't, put it into my project plan or anything like that. I literally put it in my idea parking lot. And by doing that, what happens is all new great ideas or ideas that didn't make the cut for the goal setting, they're all in one place. So at any point in time, if I finish a goal, I can go back to this parking lot and say, wait a minute, is this idea something that maybe I want to work on now because I've completed another goal? The other benefit of putting it in this kind of idea parking lot is you can kind of let go of it. You can let go of that anxiety around ideas. If you know you have a place for it, it won't be forgotten. It can be reviewed. And the last thing I like to do around this idea parking lot is I pull it into my quarterly review process. So when I review projects or I review kind of what's happening in my business and are things going the way I hope they go, often at the end of that assessment, I will sit down and look at my parking lot ideas that have maybe come up over time. And if there's any new ideas that I'm feeling really excited about, what I do is I evaluate that against a goal that's already on my list. And I say, is it a better goal or is it just another good idea? And if it is, I keep it on my parking lot and I finish the first goals that I've actually committed to. And then when it's time for me to do goal setting at the beginning of next year, I have my parking lot. I can sit down and instead of me starting with a blank sheet of paper, I can start from that and move that into my 2017 goals. So per your question there, Sarah, around kind of how do you keep all those ideas from floating around or how do you kind of focus on something is pick those goals and use this idea parking lot. I find it really, really, really does help with trying to organize things, keep you focused, and keep you on task. All right. And then the last thing I would just say is when you're doing all this goal setting and setting up all these plans and setting up all these types of requirements is make sure you take the time to reward yourself. The benefit of setting goals and the purpose of setting goals and putting all this action behind it is that you want to drive them to completion. So when you do drive them to completion, reward yourself in some way. And that may mean some incentive. Maybe it's something like a weekend off or, I'm not saying it has to be something big. Maybe it allows you to shorten your hours. Maybe you've been working crazy hours trying to get projects off the ground. So make sure you look back at it and say, okay, I got this project completed. Now I can go back to my normal work hours. Maybe you've been able to generate some additional revenue. So it's a good time for you to maybe hire someone or bring someone in and someone in part-time. I'm not talking full-time. Maybe this is someone who works 2 hours a week or an hour a week to help you out with the project because you've actually been able to complete that project. And then also think about how do you link your business goals to your personal goals. I've talked about things like development and training. Think about what you can do, especially as you start to complete these goals and really get that action flowing, is what can you do to continue your growth, to continue your ability to be stronger at running your business and to continue to grow as you grow your business. Because we don't want your business to grow and go to these amazing heights and we didn't take care of you. We didn't give you that professional, personal development to match the growth that your business is doing. Okay, so these are just some ideas, like I said before, about how to kind of take that whole process of planning, especially once you get those goals in place, and turning it into that actual template. So you can say, this is my goals. These are the things that I want to do. This is why I'm doing it. These are my milestones. These are my action steps. Drilling down, creating a project plan, and getting it done. And like I said, this should be maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours on a weekend to be able to drill down to this level. That's not completing the project plans. That's just getting it laid out and just getting it set up. And then from there, you're going to set timelines on it based on resource, levels in your business. But that's how you're going to get there. So thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm just going to do another quick survey for questions, see if I missed anything else from anyone else here on the page. Some people said this was really helpful. This is helping them answer the questions. That's great. Perfect. I'm glad to see that. Let's see. There's just another comment. The template's really good. I needed a template, something to get started. Perfect. Oh, no worries that you came in late. This is recorded, so you can always, once we stop here, give it about 5 or 10 minutes, and you can just re-hit the play button at the top, and you'll be able to watch today's video again. Let's see, any other comments? It looks like we're good. If you guys have any other questions that come up as you are watching this, as you are rolling this out, please, please, please let me know. I continue to look at the comments on this page, so feel free to jump in here and do that, and let me know what your thoughts are. Also, I'd love to know how many people have created your template. So what I'm probably going to be doing a little bit differently this year is for each of these webinars, I'm going to maybe send out follow-up emails 45 to 60 days after the webinar and see if you've been able to implement some of the things that we've talked about. So I don't want you to think you have homework and I don't want you to have pressure, but I do want you to be able to make these webinars things that you can truly implement in your business and things that can really impact your business. I don't want to just give you ideas, but I want to give you things that you can do. So I will follow up with you probably in about 45, 60 days, everyone who registered for this webinar, and see how you guys are doing with the templates, how you guys are doing with translating everything into action, and also just hearing some of your feedback. So once again, thank you guys for joining today's webinar. Really appreciate it. If you continue to have questions, please don't worry about posting them here on the page. Like I said, we had a pretty large group today, but you guys are pretty quiet as far as questions. So I hope that just means you're pondering and taking notes and thinking about everything. So as always, I hope you enjoyed today's webinar Wednesday, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, take care. Bye.